Welcome to my new show, Cooking for Novices. With this show, we're going to do something a little different than most cooking shows. Instead of just showing you a recipe and having you Simon Says your way through the recipe and making something that maybe approaches what you see as the end product for the show, I'm going to teach you the science behind the cooking. I'm going to show you why things are the way they are so that when you get challenges in your cooking or you want to do something different, you'll know how. Okay, on Cooking for Novices, popcorn. Fresh, homemade, delicious, smells wonderful. Greatest snack ever made? Maybe. Greatest snack with a movie? Most definitely. Now, I like mine with salt, maybe some butter, maybe some balsamic vinegar even. Fresh herbs, definitely an option. Microwave topping artificial junk? No, definitely not. So I just make it at home and skip all that. Now, there's also kernels available on the internet, so take a peek at those. But today we're just going to go ahead and learn how to make popcorn. So here we have the humble popcorn kernel, made up of the tough outer shell known as the pericarp, which is the part that gets stuck in your teeth, and the starchy interior made up of the endosperm and the germ. How does this create popcorn, you might ask? Well, what happens is as you heat the kernel, the starches inside liquefy. And as they liquefy, the moisture is turned into steam. The steam creates a pressure vessel out of the popcorn kernel, forcing it to eventually explode. The liquid starches now solidify, turning into the white, fluffy deliciousness known as popcorn. So, how do we get all that delicious starch out of the pericarp? Well, you got to heat it till it explodes. So what kind of methods could you use? Well, Mythbusters have used lasers before, but that's a little overkill. You could use fire, which they used to use, but the problem with fire is popcorn pops at slightly different times. So as freshly popped popcorn stays in the heat, it'll burn quickly. So you need some way of getting the popcorn out of the way of the heat so it doesn't burn. Well, you've seen those hot air poppers, I'm sure, on the store shelves, and you're thinking, oh, that's great. One problem with those, they create dry popcorn, and salt will not stick to dry popcorn. And there's nothing worse than unsalted popcorn. It's like unsalted eggs or unsalted bread. It just does not work. So, how do we get the wonderful deliciousness of popcorn salt onto our popcorn? Well, you use oil. Oil is a great medium for cooking because it surrounds your food in hot, even temperatures. And then what happens when it explodes, in this case, a little bit of the oil will coat the popcorn, allowing some of the salt to stick to it. And then we use a bowl, because a bowl has a nice exploding shape. No, it's not really exploding, but it's a shape that's going to allow the popcorn to rise up while allowing the unpopped popcorn to stay at the bottom towards the heat source. That way nobody gets burned and everybody gets popped. So, how do we go about doing that? Well, it's quite easy. You actually just need a stove and these ingredients along with your salt. And let's get started. So what we have here is kosher salt, regular sea salt, and pickling and or popcorn salt. What are the differences, you might ask? Well, this is kosher salt. Notice the big flaky texture. This makes it great for adhering to wet types of foods such as meats. Next up is your regular sea salt. This is kind of your all-purpose flour of the salt world. It's good in most applications. Due to its small size, it sticks to most things and is easily measured. Next up is the popcorn salt or pickling salt. Basically, it's a much finer size salt, as you can see. And the difference here is that by being so much smaller, it sticks to things where normal salt won't stick to, like popcorn. So, how do you make popcorn salt at home? Take salt, put it for a spin through your favorite food processor using the old pulse until the grains are small enough to fit between the whorls of your fingerprints. So, let's go ahead and start making our popcorn. I have a bowl here, dirt cheap from a restaurant supply store. I would suggest finding your local restaurant supply store, as they will have most of your kitchen goods for much cheaper than any Mega Mart, Big Mart, whatever mart's near you. Got all the other ingredients here, so I'm going to go ahead and put my popcorn in my bowl.
Half a cup works for my bowl. I'm not going to tell you that half a cup works in your bowl. I'd say go on the low end until you figure out how much. Now, you never want so much popcorn pop that it gets straight to the top, because at that point, the popcorn, when it pops, won't have as much room to fully pop, and you have small, tiny, hard popcorn, which is not good eats. So how much oil do you add? Well, again, since we don't know how much you're putting in, the best way I could tell you is fill it to the top of the popcorn. What kind of oil, you ask? Well, a good neutral flavored high temperature oil is good. I'm using canola oils. That's what's cheaply available to me. Peanut oil works great in this particular application. Yeah, use what you got. If you particularly like flavoring your popcorn, high temperature oils that are flavorful are, of course, an option. Play around. This is why we do things at home. So I have the oil to the top of the popcorn, just nice and covered. You want to be able to popcorn to move when you swirl it, not be clumped together. If it's still kind of one mass, you need more oil. Salt. Well, that's really a personal preference. Me, I like a lot of salt. Some people don't like a little bit of salt. Others are in between. If you're doing it for yourself, salt it to your taste. If you're doing it for a lot of people, obviously salt light, and then add more for each individual that wants more. Suggested right after you pull it off the stove, because that's when it sticks the best. So, now how do we keep the hot oil off of our face? The aluminum foil. Doesn't really matter shiny side up or shiny side down. Just go ahead and crimp it down. Now, as you can see, this aluminum foil does not fit the whole length of my bowl. That's because where I currently shop, there is no extra long, heavy duty aluminum foil. If you have it, I suggest it. If not, it's not the end of the world. Just go ahead and use 2 pieces. Okay, so after you crimp it all down, go ahead and poke some holes on the top of the aluminum foil. Don't need a lot, just enough so that steam escapes after you cook it.
So, during cooking, we obviously want to keep the uncooked kernels towards the bottom and the popped kernels up the top. Now, best way to do this, simple agitation, shaking. Easiest way, everybody's got to prepare tongs properly. You can just take it, hold the side of the bowl, and shake. Me, I like using my favorite implements of the kitchen, my hands. I happen to have grow gloves that work wonderfully for this sort of application because they're exactly shaped in my hands. Be careful of fire, as always, if you use induction heating or whatever, or the nice infrared. You might want to look into these so you don't scratch the surface of your glass. So I'm going to go ahead and start the fire now. Okay, so for the first minute or so, nothing's going to happen because the oil's heating up, popcorn kernels are heating up, and so nothing's going to explode yet. So you still want to shake during this period, you just don't need to do it as often. So just every few seconds, give it a good shake, a little one of these, whatever works for you. Okay, as you can see, the steam's starting to rise up already. Keep on moving it. See the steam there? That's why we poke holes. We're going to keep on shaking. And then, once it starts popping regularly, just keep on shaking. Okay, then as popcorn starts picking up and popping, just go ahead and keep on shaking it continuously. Once it's the last few, just shake it really good and hard. And then go ahead and turn off the fire. You don't want to burn anything. Might have a few kernels left over, but it'll be alright. Then you want to take your foil off. That way no steam really gets trapped in there. Look at that. Beautiful, fresh popcorn. Mmm. Smell the lovely popcorn aroma that you just can't get out of the bag. Or a tin, as they sometimes come. So now, serving options. Well, there's of course the obligatory butter. It works sometimes. Usually it makes me feel too fat. I know, ironic. I prefer just the regular old salt approach. I think it tastes lovely. Another few favorites, balsamic vinegar. Go ahead and put it in a spray bottle, squirt it on, perfect. Malt vinegar also works well. You can always chop a few fresh herbs like thyme or basil or whatever. Chop them up, throw them in there, give them a quick toss. That's all you got to do. And that is popcorn making.